It was a calm spring morning in March 1991, in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Daegu, South Korea. 5 boys, Woo Cheol, Yongyu, Ho-yun, Chan-in, and Song-ho, woke up early that day, full of energy and curiosity. They were between 9 and 13 years old, all friends from the same elementary school. The air smelled of spring, and the forests around the village were beginning to bloom. That morning, they decided to go on a short adventure, as children often do. They told their parents they were going to catch salamander eggs near Waryong Mountain. Their parents smiled, told them to be careful, and assumed they would be home before lunch. No one could have imagined that it would be the last time they ever saw their sons alive. The date was March 26, 1991, a local election day, a national holiday. The streets were quiet, adults were voting, and the small town was peaceful. At around 9 a.m., the 5 boys left together, carrying sticks and small containers. They were dressed lightly with no food or water, thinking they would be gone for just a couple of hours. But when the sun began to set and the boys had not returned, worry began to spread among their families. The parents went up the mountain, shouting their children's names, their voices echoing in the dark forest. But there was no answer. As night fell, they called the police and the nightmare began. At first, the authorities treated it as a case of runaway children. They insisted the boys would come home soon. Precious hours slipped away. By the next morning, the search began, not just by the police, but by hundreds of villagers and volunteers. Over the next weeks, the number of searchers would grow to more than 300,000. The military joined in. Helicopters, dogs, and search teams combed the mountain and its streams. Every cave, every trail, every valley was searched. Yet not a single trace of the boys was found. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. The case soon captured national attention. The media called them the Frog Boys, a nickname inspired by their quest for salamander eggs. Their faces appeared on television, in newspapers, and on missing posters across the country. But as weeks turned into months, sympathy turned into frustration and fear. If 5 children could vanish in broad daylight so close to home, what did that say about safety in Korea? Theories began to multiply. Some believed the boys had been kidnapped by someone they knew. Others suspected a serial killer, a military accident, or even something supernatural. The mountain, once a playground, became a place of dread. Parents forbade their children from going near it. Every rumor, every anonymous call, every unverified sighting sent investigators in circles. For years, the families refused to give up. They appeared on television, begging for information, pleading for their son's return. They distributed flyers, visited psychics, and followed countless false leads. Every year, on the anniversary of the disappearance, the parents climbed the mountain, calling the boys' names into the wind. But time only brought silence. Then, in September 2002, 11 years after the disappearance, a shocking discovery shattered the long stillness. A hiker walking through Waryong Mountain stumbled upon something half-buried in the dirt. A shoe, a few pieces of clothing, and bones. When police arrived, they uncovered more remains. Forensic tests confirmed what everyone had feared but never dared to believe. They were the remains of the 5 missing frog boys. The location was only about 2.7 kilometers from their homes, within the very same mountain that had been searched so many times before. The question everyone asked was, how could 5 bodies have gone unnoticed for more than a decade, in an area combed by thousands? The initial police conclusion was that the boys had gotten lost and died of exposure. But the forensic evidence told a darker story. Several skulls showed fractures consistent with blunt force trauma, injuries that could only have been caused by deliberate blows. The boys hadn't simply frozen to death. They had been attacked. The official narrative began to crumble. Someone had killed them, but who? The discovery reignited public anger and suspicion. If the boys had been murdered, why hadn't the police found them earlier? Had the bodies been hidden elsewhere and moved later? Had the case been covered up? Some suspected involvement from the nearby military base. The boys might have witnessed something they weren't supposed to see. Others believed it was the work of a single local resident. But without witnesses, without new physical evidence, and with 11 years lost, every theory remained speculation. The investigation continued for years, but no progress was made. Leads went cold, files were misplaced, and crucial forensic samples were reportedly damaged. In 2006, the statute of limitations expired, meaning that even if the killer were identified, they could no longer be legally punished. For the families, this was another cruel blow. They had already lost their sons. Now they lost the hope of justice too. The story of the Frog Boys became one of the most infamous unsolved cases in South Korean history. It represented not only the tragedy of 5 lost lives, but also the deep flaws in the nation's early criminal investigations. The parents continued to fight for recognition, building a small memorial near the mountain. Over time, their hair turned gray, their voices weakened, and one by one, they passed away, still waiting for the truth. Today, more than 33 years later, the mystery still haunts the nation. Every few years, the story resurfaces. In documentaries on YouTube, in podcasts, and each time, new generations discover the case and ask the same questions. Who killed the Frog Boys? Why? And how could such a thing happen in broad daylight, in a place so close to home? The mountain remains silent. The evidence is gone. But for many Koreans, the image of 5 smiling boys, frozen in photographs from 1991, still brings an ache to the heart. Their story is no longer just about a crime. It's about memory, regret, and the silence that follows when truth is buried too deep. Maybe somewhere someone still knows the truth. Maybe the person responsible still walks among us, carrying the weight of what they did. Or maybe the truth was lost long ago, buried under time and indifference. Yet the question endures. What really happened on that mountain? No one can say for sure. And until someone does, the wind that passes through Waryong Mountain seems to whisper the same words. Words that have echoed for 33 years. The truth is still here, waiting to be found.